Let's continue the news with Railroader. Railroader 2024.6 is inbound. Now, what this basically means is the people who have been living on the experimental branch, and I call them the smart people, who have been eating up these changes one little bit at a time, they're about to come back to the main branch. Going to be forced back, in fact. And the reason they're getting forced back is because the experimental branch is going back to the main branch, Mainline. And the people who have sat on the main line who went, no, back, heathen. The development branch is never going to come to the main line. Well, I'm sorry, but by the time you're reading this or listening to this, it already has. And now you have to gobble up all that change all at once. So instead of going nip, nibbles, you're going to have to go gobble. And you're going to just have to swallow it. Anyway, let's get into it. So this has already happened, this particular bit of news, and I hope to bring it to you earlier, but various things conspired and that didn't happen. On Monday, March 3rd, we are finally bringing our work on the experimental branch to everybody. As usual, by the way, I read these articles to improve the accessibility for the information for those who can't or won't go and read it for themselves, and I usually chuck in my own smart-ass comments. Those of you who have not opted into the experimental branch, balls, will finally experience auto-engineer waypoint mode, timetables if you choose, new engines, and more. We will remove the experimental branch at this time. If you wish to delay updating, you can switch to the 202.5 branch, which is currently available. But note, we remove this on Monday, March 17th, so it's in 2 weeks. So don't bother switching, in other words. Now, before you switch, take all your mods out. All of them. Because you need to update everything like Strange Customs, Railroader, pretty much every mod from Alina and Foxy, just about everything you're going to have to update it because the track's moved and the base game classes have moved and there's new locomotives and there's all sorts of stuff. So if you don't do it, Railroader will either catch fire, fall over and sink into the swamp after the huge tracts of land come out, or it'll do weird things because your mods are playing up. Anyway, just warning you, you need to do it. Thank you to the many who have played the experimental branch, hi, and shared your feedback with us, hi. You've been a huge help in improving Railroader. If you've already on the experimental branch, you don't need to change anything before Monday. When we remove it, you'll be moved to the main release. I seem to already have been. We plan to create a new experimental branch at some point in the future. For those of you who haven't been on the experimental branch, suffer. Here are some highlights of what to expect in 2024.6 when it releases. Now note, this is just highlights, and there's tons more, so you really need to go to the detailed change notes to understand what's going on with the game now. We are watching a train shuttle back and forth at the new building down at Nantahala, I believe that is. And I actually have a mod sitting there, and my mod building sitting on top of that building, and it looks kind of cool because there's bits sticking out everywhere, and I like it, so I left it that way. What you're looking at here is a train shuttling back and forth because you've told it to go here and then go over there and get that car. And you're also looking at the new diesel, the new variety. So we've got, I call it the banana. But anyway, we'll get into that in a moment. Auto waypoint is a game changer. Took my average 12 to 13 hour runtime for a day of Railroader down to about 9 to 10 hours for every day, which is really, really good. The most game-changing feature is auto-engineer waypoint mode. Waypoint mode lets you give your auto-engineer a point on the track and it will route itself to that location, lining switches along the way. You can perform a runaround in just a few clicks or send a train out of the yard and straight to a customer track miles away. You can also send it from one end of the layout to the other, so you can take the whole thing. It does have some caveats. While waypoint mode is very powerful, there are some limitations. Auto engineers cannot negotiate meets with other trains. Sometimes they manage it, but generally not. You still need to act as dispatcher, either by setting incremental waypoints or using CTC. Along the same lines, AEs may fight over switches if they have conflicting routes. So what you'll find, what you need to do is set up your own meets. So basically you send both trains to the points where there's a place they can pass. And once they get there, you send them off again to wherever they're going. And that forces them to go into the right track and pass each other. If you haven't used it yet, you'll find a waypoint mode makes a huge difference in your ability to scale your operation, which is why we've invested so much in this feature over the past few months. Yeah, I'm running a full system with nearly all the industries active, and I do it by myself. So I don't need other people because trains are driving themselves. Other auto engineer changes. Another new feature for auto engineers is notices, a new UI element that lets the AE notify you when something is wrong or when it has completed its instructions. Notices appear on the upper right corner of your screen and help make you aware of when an AE reaches its waypoint, a fusee, or can't move because of a handbrake or switch against it in road or yard mode, and so forth. Those don't disappear either, you've got to clear them. That's both good and annoying. We've made all AE control to the HUD lower left. The Auto Engineer Orders tab has been removed from the Locomotive Inspector. We know the Orders tab is preferred by some players, but with adding a new AE mode, we had to reach a point where maintaining two different UIs for the same thing was not practical. We'll be looking at ways to make it easier to control an AE engine without selecting it for a future release. We've also made numerous changes, other refinements and enhancements to the Auto Engineers, including making hard couples less likely, reducing some of the padding distances to make it easier to get right up to the end of the track, and treating intermediate signals as stop and proceed. The default minimum passenger stop duration has been changed to 1 minute and can now be set as low as 30 seconds in settings. Additionally, MU now works better with steam and multiple united to diesel and vice versa. That actually works really well. I use it a lot, particularly when I have to send steam engines to rescue diesels that can't get up hills. Timetable mode is the next big change. Timetables are a new, advanced, and optional feature. By creating a timetable in the in-game editor, you can bring a sense of structure to your railroad, as well as enjoy higher passenger profitability, as passengers will gather for the scheduled trains. Auto-engineer passenger trains also follow the timetable, holding at passenger stations until the timetable departure time. Timetable train symbols are assigned to train crews. The timetable trains are directional, westbound or eastbound, and can even run onto the Alaka branch. Note, however, that because trains are directional and Alaka is a railroad west of Alaka Junction, it is not currently possible to create a timetable train from, say, Andrews to Alaka. Instead, you'll need to create a separate timetable train so that the eastbound from Andrews can change symbols to a westbound at Alaka Junction. Keep in mind that it's also possible to avoid this issue by transferring passengers to another train entirely at Alaka Junction. Now, that's what I do. I don't actually run timetables. I've found them to be kind of getting in the way, to be honest, because I have a fairly laissez-faire approach, fairly free, and timetables, yes, they introduce structure, but they made it kind of annoying, and the way they work is kind of annoying, so I dumped them. You don't have to use them. Equipment, give them a try though, because maybe they'll work for the way that you like to run the railway. There are some new locomotives, and we can see them here. These include new power and a tank car. The P48 modelled after the Southern PS4 class, and revised the P43 to model the USRA Heavy Pacific. C40 Mastodon, modelled after the Norfolk and Western M class. The SD7 diesel locomotive, and the Union tank car. The Mastodon is a beast. It's quite a powerful machine. I've been using one of those in Alaka with Foxy's copper mines, and it does a very good job at moving those very heavy cars around and getting them up the hill. As well as aggregate load models and numerous model refinements, including the C46, F71, T22, SW1, C40, C55, C23, GP9, and SW. Scenery. This release also sees a lot of new construction along the railroad. There's a new station at Dillsborough, Ella Farm Supply, Alaka Copper Company, Locust Pin Company, Tahala Power and Light, Union Lumber Company, and several fuel dealers now have structures. We think these add a lot to the environment and are looking forward to adding more in future releases. Yeah, the structures are really good. Yeah. Some of us have mods that run stations in those areas. The game will appear with your mod. In some cases, I've left mods there because the new structure looks kind of cool with bits of one of them sticking out of bits of the other one. It just looks like a really busy industry. But others I've taken away the mod because it's not needed anymore because of the real one, which means sometimes I had to edit mods to move or remove buildings. It's not hard to do. You just get into the JSON and do it. There's a train with a flare stopped at a crossing. Track and operations. There's been a fair bit of change here. This is the new silver, and you can see the new Y and the new connections in and out. Few of you will have mods that modified silver. You have to get rid of them. update to the newer ones if you still need them, but give the new layout a try. It works very well. There's a new Y at Silver. You can now turn your trains at the eastern end, as well as a new customer, Silver Building Supply. Both were inspired by historic Silver track arrangements. There's also a new customer at the western end of the railroad, Tatum Grain and Seed Company at Andrews. This has necessitated moving the Andrews Signal Milestone staging area closer to the Andrews passenger station. You will need to move any cars formerly spotted for this milestone. More operationally, we've made some enhancements to passengers. Passengers taking transfers now pay a full fare upon reaching their destination. Previously, they would only pay a fare for the last leg of their journey. Also, passengers will now only wait 4 hours from the time they board their first train. After 4 hours, they disappear. We've removed the time multiplier feature, because it was crap. This is a fun feature, but as we have made enhancements to the aforementioned passenger time limit and timetables in particular, it became clear that time multiplier, which made everything but trains move faster, would become a source of confusion. We have, however, added a new time window. Click on the clock in the top right corner or hit F3. With the time window, you can easily wait to allow time to pass to get the customer to release that last car. Or sleep for overnight to get the interchange served. Simulation. There are a number of simulation changes. Locomotive and tender brake cylinder pressures for a train brake application now matches the 2.5 times factor of standard cars. Additionally, locomotive brake cylinders hold pressure applied via train brake until the train brake is released or the independent is bailed off. Fixed a long-standing issue where when an engine that has been bailed off was loaded from a save, the brake line would incorrectly be restored to 0 psi. Fixed a case where the car on the grade would not start rolling after releasing the handbrake. Updated the notch to power mapping more closely match the EMD documentation. Diesels now produce 100% more power at notch 1. User interface. We've also continued to invest in improving Railroader's UI. Revamped the right-click circular menu design. Fixed an issue where clicks in objects might not register correctly in low frame rate situations. If you still encounter these issues, please try enabling VSync or limit to 60 FPS. Doesn't help much. Let us know if the issue persists. For me, it mostly happens on clicking the glad hands. We don't end up with the ankle cocks as well as the glad hands. Windows now remembers their position and size between game sessions. Overhead 2 camera now restores its orientation after moving to stay above the ground, such as when following a train through a tunnel. Refined the switch list window, fixing layout issues and moving the buttons into gear drop-down menu. Teleporting to the mouse pointer now results in first-person camera pointing in the expected direction. Car Inspector Operations tab status field now shows expected waybill payment, including timely bonus and damage fine. Tooltip has a full breakdown. HUD controls for diesel engines now snap and show notch values. In-cab throttle tooltip now shows notches. Added shift-click on ankle cock to toggle between open and close or jump to the nearest in the middle. Now, just on the damage fines, if you bugger up a car, you can elect to service it or you can just drop it off broken. It's generally cheaper to drop off broken, so I don't service them. Multiplayer. There are several multiplayer enhancements. New settings give you more control over your crews. Train manager manages crew assignments and restrict equipment control to train crew. We've also fixed joining a game from Steam Invite when Railroader is not already running and made a key enhancement to better handle joining very large games. Additional improvements, a few other noteworthy changes. A new decal culling system helps with frame rates on busy railroads. Fixed a memory leak related to audio clips used on engines. We've bumped up the high video quality level to improve texture quality, forced anisotropic, as well as shadow cascades. Made the first-person camera move more smoothly when riding on a car. Rail ends are now rendered. Thank you for reading to the end. Keep in mind that these are just the highlights. For a complete list of changes, please see the in-game release notes, which can also be found in a text file if you click Browse Local Files in Steam. We're excited to finally release this work to the main branch, and it's been quite a journey. And again, a big thank you to the players who have played in the experimental branch and provided their feedback and bug reports. What's next for Railroader? Well, we're not quite ready to say what's next for features, but we're going to continue populating the map with buildings, as well as making model refinements. Our roadmap is up to date, and we've got some great stuff planned for future updates. So they have actually delivered their roadmap, basically. Anyway, that's it for Railroaders. If you've got any questions, chuck them down below. And if you're offended because I said you have to eat the elephant now, well, tough. Alrighty, enjoy yourselves. Have fun, folks. See you later.
We played a game.